Hello, everyone. Welcome to AllisonReeves.co YouTube channel. I am going live today to talk to you about how to figure out what sells. This has been a huge theme for me and clients this year, and really, it's always a theme, especially for entrepreneurs who are smaller like we are, before we have a bunch of full-time staff and before we have everything totally hammered out while we're growing. We have to constantly figure out like what it is that gets people to buy, especially online. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today is just some of the themes that have come up. So if you are here, which I see some people are hopping on, say hello so I can know for sure that you hear me and see me. And I'm going to just proceed in teaching. So our replay is nice and clean. I'm going to pull up my notes here. And there's no catch. This training is just free. It's just something I wanted to talk about. I've changed my email marketing tool. And so I think part of why I wanted to do this is just have a time where like a first kind of, I don't know, it feels like a reintroduction in a way. So there's 4 things I want to talk about. One is alignment in general. So I want to talk about why it's important to figure out like what is aligned for you, what is aligned for your business. And I want to talk about that from a somatic perspective on like what does alignment feel like as well. So you can start learning like to trust your intuition more, to make decisions faster. You'll get better at figuring out what sells. So these days I don't stress as much about what will sell. And I haven't had anything not sell in a long time. And I know that many of you have heard this whole theme around sell people what they want and then give them what they need. And if you've heard that before, you can comment as well. I think sometimes people have a hard time commenting. I have to figure out how that functionality works through here. But I know many of you have heard this. Sell people what they want, give them what they need. So I want to talk about what that means and then how to do that, obviously with integrity. And then I want to talk about your like entry point into getting more clarity around what people want to buy and what people will buy, and just how to start paying attention to the signals from your audience. So we'll talk about that and how to find that. And then I'm going to end by just talking a little bit about how to create good content. So the more like feedback I get from you, the more I can contextualize this a little bit. Good content. Well, I will talk about this, whether I get feedback from you or not. But if somebody wants to drop like what your niche is and what you're trying to sell, it will give me something to kind of riff on. If I don't have that, I'm just going to talk in generalities. So first, let's talk about what alignment feels like and why this is important. So we always want to approach business from a somatic, aligned spiritual perspective, not just the practical, because at the end of the day, there are things that are going to work really well for them and may not work as well for you because they aren't aligned. So for example, one thing that used to work really well for me that became not aligned is like DMing everyone who joined my Facebook group. That used to be a huge sales mechanism for me. Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know you can hear me and see me in the chat, Colleen. So that used to be really aligned to me. It worked really well to get sales. And there was a point at which that became not aligned. And there are many reasons for that, which I won't get into unless you have specific questions. But that didn't feel good in my body. And it started to not have the results that I wanted. Instead of being a genuine connection, the DM conversations turned into like people feeling the sale before it ever got there. And that's true, not just for what you're selling, but also how you're selling it. So it could be, Evelyn Weiss is someone who you guys might have heard of. She runs a lot of ads. So a lot of us have seen her face on social media. And she's someone who wanted to coach in marketing and in business, but it was not aligned for her to do high ticket offers. And so she didn't. So she's made her, I think, multiple 7 figures at this point by selling low cost offers primarily. Her memberships range from like $9 a month to maybe a few $100s a month. I think she just launched a mastermind that was closer to $1,000 or more a month. But for most of her business, it was not aligned for her to do high ticket. And so it was hard for her to sell. And now when she leaned into what was aligned for her at that time, she made a lot of money. She got a lot of people good results. So it's very important for you to lean into, for you to start discovering and feeling into what's aligned for you to sell and what's aligned for you in regards to how you sell it. And also distinguishing between alignment and then like just leaning into general challenges. So like when I say, alignment usually feels like easier in our body, it feels lighter, it feels looser. Whereas things that are not in alignment might feel heavier or cause constriction in your body. And there's a difference between something that isn't aligned and something that is maybe just like a challenge for us that we don't like. So, for example, I have had worked with many clients who deal with technical overwhelm, and that is not the same as a lack of alignment because, unfortunately, if you have an online business, you will have to do some tech. And of course, the things that are harder for you, of course, you're going to eventually outsource those things. But, and some people, like I can think of Melanie Ann Lair, who's a multiple 8-figure business owner who does very silly things with her tech. She does things that I would consider like they're not SEO friendly, they're not mobile friendly, they're not like good online business practices, but they work really, really well for her. All of her programs are delivered live and in Facebook groups. And some would say maybe that's not the best practice, but that is aligned for her and it gets results for her clients, and her clients are okay with it. So went on a tangent there. So 2 things that will help you lean into alignment. I'm just going to kind of tell you some like journal prompts in here. Maybe I can just leave this as a comment. I think it will show up in the replay. Oh no, comments won't show up in the replay. I can't remember. But so think about a time when something felt hard for you. And I probably specifically in your business, you can think about something from school or a job or something else if you're not like making money in your business yet. But I want you to think about something that was hard, and I want you to think about when something was felt challenging, had good results. And then I want you to think about something that was challenging that didn't have good results. And this is not to say that just because it felt challenging, it was right or wrong, but you're just like, think about one experience that felt hard and it had good results. And just let yourself consider this experience. And then think about an experience that felt hard that had, did I say good results first or bad results? Whichever one I didn't say. Do the other one and just consider it. Then I want you to think about something that feels easy and light that had good results. And then think about something that was easy and fun and light that had bad results. And let yourself just consider all of these things. Journal on them. Phone a friend. Because that'll help you lean into like, oh, this was hard, but it had really good results. Maybe that's something I'm willing to push myself into. That was hard and had bad results. Maybe I need to improve on it, or maybe that's not aligned for me. Results don't translate to what is aligned or not for you necessarily. This exercise is just to help you start discovering and feeling into. The other exercise you can do is, what does truth feel like in your body, and what does false feel like in your body? So a really good way to just start testing this is to write on a piece of paper a bunch of very obvious truths, and write on a piece of paper a bunch of obvious lies, then go for a walk, then come back to the piece of paper and read a statement out loud that's true. And just to like, what do I feel? Read a statement out loud that's false. What do I feel? The first time you do this exercise, you may feel nothing, and that is okay. When I first started leaning into like what is aligned, true and false, like leaning into my own intuition, I felt nothing, but I trusted the process. And for me, for many of us, I didn't feel safe to feel emotion, stressors, anxiety, and I also didn't feel safe to feel a lot of physical things. So it might just take practice to lean into alignment, but it will arise and become more clear. So when it comes to knowing what sells, we've got to pay attention to the emotional and spiritual as much as the practical. And you can ignore the emotional and the spiritual for a long time, maybe forever. But for many of us, it will eventually create a block, which is why I'm addressing it first. But I will tell you, I made a lot of money before paying attention to my emotions or alignment. So if you're like not willing to do that internal work, don't let that become a block either. So now let's get into the practical. You want to sell people what they want and give them what they need. Many of you heard this before. What does that mean? So one thing that's important when you're selling people what they want and then giving them what they need, you have to make sure that you're capable of both, right? So for example, like I am a business consultant, And often when I'm working with business and marketing clients, we end up doing somatic emotional mindset work. And that's why I got a certification in that, because I didn't learn about mindset, and I would teach clients about mindset when it arose, not if they didn't want to learn it. But when it came up and they were open to it, I brought it up in my, especially when I had a group program all the time. I've realized that mindset, like, it only went so far, and I wasn't going to go and back and get like a 4-year degree. So I got a somatic coaching accredited somatic coaching certification, which made me, and it's trauma informed. So I learned like what are the appropriate edges of what I can help people with, and when should I refer people, and all that responsible kind of stuff. So I'm a business and marketing consultant, but what I've realized is a lot of the time, to get the result that people want in their business, they have to do some kind of energetic work. So that is true. I'm selling people what they want. So what I've learned is that people buy more from me when I lean into the business and the marketing than if I just sell like a mindset coaching call or a somatic call. If my businessy type stuff, it tends to sell better, even though I tend to sell a lot of energetic stuff. That's what I'm having fun with in this phase. My business stuff gets purchased at a higher rate. All that to say, I sell people what they want, and then I give them what they need. So I'm selling business coaching, give them what they need. And I'm capable of both. So I'm not going to sell business consulting and give people mindset coaching if I can't do the business consulting. And I'm sure that you guys are aware of like the people that do this. This happened a lot in 2020 when everybody just made a lot of money online. Like it was just easier that year to make money online, I think, than it's been in a long time. And I saw a lot of people who were successful, like Instagram influencers, for example, who then decided to become business coaches. So they were selling themselves as a business coach, and they were giving people what they needed, which was Instagram consulting or implementation. So the problem that I had, I actually got clients who would buy from someone like that, who kind of figured out one thing, but they weren't really able to coach from an open perspective. When I think of business consulting, I think someone who has like experience in multiple businesses, corporate, solopreneur, or whatever you're specializing in. So that to me is out of integrity. That can be out of integrity if you're not clear. Like I'm selling business consulting, but I'm really just giving like Instagram consulting. And that's like thinking of one specific example, but that's one example. Another example is I had a client who was like a performance coach. And so what we learned for her was that like she's a performance coach, but what got people to buy from her was more like on the health side of things. But then they got the performance results because they didn't just focus on health, but they also focused on things like productivity and leadership. But what got people to buy from her was the health. So we sold them what they wanted, which was like health. And we gave them what they needed to get a holistic health result, which is health and also productivity, leadership, all that kind of stuff. Because in performance coaching, like with executives, their health is usually impacted not just because of what they're putting in their body, but like all these other things that are causing stress. So how do you figure out what you're going to sell in regards to what people want? So we're talking about like, what is our entry? So like, how did I figure out that like the thing I really needed to focus on more in my brand was like the business and marketing, as opposed to like the self-care and the mindset, which I'm capable of both. I have experience in both. I have results in both personally and with clients. But like, why am I leaning into one rather than the other? Although the funny thing is I'm kind of leaning into the energetic stuff more now. But it's not because I think that necessarily gets me more sales in the short term. I'm in a place also, short tangent, where most of my income is coming from referrals in my blog right now. So then even though most of my income is coming from that on the marketing side, I'm kind of focusing more on the energetic stuff because I want to grow that side. So I guess that's why it seems like I'm doing the opposite of what I'm telling you to do. Okay, so how do you figure out what the entry point is? And if you have questions, like as soon as I'm done teaching, I end the live like pretty quick, because I don't like there to be like a long like lull at the end for the replay. So if you have questions, comments, I would put those in the chat now, because at the end, I'll just have like a few seconds to be like, do you have any questions? And then there's like a delay and then it might be gone. So if you have questions, ask them now and not the end, because Kimberly's laughing. As soon as it's over, I like cut it off. So ask your questions now, because at the end, I may not ask again. And this is not, we're only going to go about 15 more minutes at the most. So what is your entry point into all of this? So I'm going to give some examples, and these examples go through what we started as with the client or myself, what resonated for what people wanted, and then what we ended up selling. Hi, Kimberly, good to see you. So in all the examples I'm giving, the end offer is not what we were like putting out on the front end of the business. So these are some examples. For one blog that I had, it started as a self-care blog. Then I had a piece of content that really resonated with people. So I wore the same outfit for 21 days in a row. And so even though I had a self-care blog, like I had tried selling like self-care stuff, and it just didn't really, it ended up growing my email list a lot because I put the self-care offers in bundles, but people didn't pay me actual money very often for that offer. So when I had this post kind of take off on Pinterest and then on YouTube on wearing the same outfit every day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to the signal. What is it people are telling me they want this? What is it people are telling me they want? So I just started testing some things. I'm going to tell you how to do this also in a second. I started testing some things, and I'm like, okay, do they want more on minimalism? Do they want capsule wardrobe stuff, which didn't resonate? I'm like, if I wear the same outfit every day, what am I going to sell them? Air. So what I figured out that worked, that ended up selling a lot before I sold the blog, was a declutter binder. So I had a self-care blog, then I got a signal, what do people want? And then I sold them what they needed, which is the declutter binder. But then also I know that self-care is going to help bring that result. So I always had an element of self-care in those offers. So I still sold them what they wanted, and I also gave them what they needed. So I gave them decluttering and also the spiritual side. Here's another example of someone who was not a coaching client of mine, but someone who I've seen as they've grown. So they're a psychic medium. So we're a psychic medium, that's what the brand is. So what is resonating that people buy? It's readings. But this particular psychic medium I know of, they're not really like wanting to just, get on calls and try to find an ancestor, or like they got into this because they wanted to help people like elevate. They wanted to help them like spiritually ascend, to step into the highest version of themselves. So they're a psychic medium and they're selling clarity readings because that's like what people are paying attention to. But then when they're doing those readings, they're doing life and spiritual coaching. They're like talking to you about their chart, their astrology chart, and what it means. And then that reading turns into these packages that she's created for longer term life coaching. So she sells people what they want. Okay, we'll do a reading. That's what you guys want. And then I give them what they need, which is I'm going to give them the reading because I can do that. But then I'm going to lead it into what I know they really need and want. And we'll get the results, which is the mentorship. And then last example is like, which I've already talked about, is like, I started out as like a marketing coach. And then what I really realized, especially online creators, they don't just need help with like marketing, but like, what are we selling and how do we sell it? Like, so I could do a whole training on that. And people start these online businesses and they're like, I'm just going to start a blog and see where it goes. But they don't have a clear idea on how they want to monetize. So then they end up blogging for years and years and years and wondering why they're not making any money. They just hope that's what I did with my personal blog too at first. And then it's like, oh, you have to like start with the idea in mind of how you're going to monetize. So I started as a marketing coach, ended up becoming a business coach. I need to help people figure out what to sell and sell it because I'm doing that and it's getting results. And then the business coaching, I do give that to them. But then I also know now that what really gets the results is like the mindset and manifesting work. So I gave them that too. So how do you start finding all of this? Like the most important thing is just to look for the content that resonates. So this involves like, first of all, your content has to be good. If you're putting out like crap content, so, if you write a new blog post and you put it on social and you say, I wrote a new blog post, and that's the whole caption, that's not high quality content. That's really going to give you a signal. Saying I did this and not giving any information that's educational, inspirational, or aspirational. We have to lean into those, that could be a whole training. I'm going to try not to make this like 2 hours long. But if you want me to talk about that more now, let me know. And if you want me to do a future training on it, also let me know. So your content has to be good if we're going to pay attention to signals for it. Or this step won't really help. But assuming that your content is decent, you want to pay attention to how that's resonating. What emails are people opening? What videos on Instagram got more views? So I have a former client who, I won't say what they do because it's like very specific, but he does something in a health niche that's like very specific. And one of the posts that he did that went kind of viral was about how regulating your nervous system will help with this particular health issue. So I'm like, that's a signal. Like, you're trying to figure out for your coaching, like what's going to resonate. And like, that is something you should pay attention to. Is like, let's stop creating this thing that you're creating and like create a guide for helping people regulate their nervous system. The other thing about making sure that your content can resonate is making sure that your niche and ideas are narrow enough to where people can understand what you're doing. So I'm not saying you have to have a super narrow niche or even that you have to choose a niche, but it has to be narrow enough to where people can get it. So this has been something I've had to educate a lot, because business coaching and somatic emotional coaching are not necessarily always together. I think there are enough people doing it. It's not like too weird. But one example of something that what you would have to do a lot of education on is like a psychic medium who is also a food blogger. Like, figuring out what to sell if you're going to write about all of that is going to be hard, because that might be very different audiences. Another example of something that might be hard that I've seen someone do successfully. So you can do anything you want at the end of the day. If it's aligned for you, you're going to make it make sense. But something I wouldn't recommend that I've seen someone do successfully is food blogger and Pinterest coach. And I think the reason why that works is because her blog obviously is like huge on Pinterest. So she kind of gets a following from other people who want to be food bloggers or whatever. But so look for the content that's resonating, like emails, social media posts, blog posts, videos, whatever. The other thing that will really help you, and this is like the harder part, is that you've got to test things. So I have 2 low-cost courses on my everything page on my website. One is $9 and one is between $70 and $100. I can't remember how much it is. So light launches and fast offer frameworks. But you've got to, in order to figure out what's going to resonate, you've got to sell more often. So we're going to pay attention to clues. We're going to try not to waste time, right? Because like, we don't want to sell things a million times and have a bunch of things fail. It's not great for your mindset. So we're going to pay attention to signals. You can also do market research, which I did not include in this training because I feel like you've probably heard that from a million other people, but asking people what they want, like listening to their words, is a really helpful tool. And I have a very specific way that I do that with coaching clients, but obviously market research will help you figure out what people will buy. But the other thing is like, just the best tool for figuring out what people will buy is money. Not asking someone, but what they might buy. But once they give you $1, now you know what they will buy. And so I highly recommend doing what I call light launches, minimalist launches. And this is hard when your email list is like well under 1,000 people. It is harder. And so if your email list is really, really tiny and you have no idea what you're going to sell, then I would recommend doing the Audience Accelerator, which is also a $9 course to kind of get you started. So that's another signal in addition to your content that will help you figure out like what's going to sell is actually just selling something. One thing about fast offer frameworks, light launches, My coaching clients get any course that they want. So some of these are just $9. Anybody is going to buy it. Some of these are like a couple $100, not anything I mentioned so far, but I do have spots for new business coaching clients if you want to schedule a call, which you can find that link on AllisonRaves.co. So talking about, let me go into the chat real quick and see. So Kim says, I told someone the other day that they were going to fail because they wanted to hire me to be an influencer at Amazon. Yes, I agree. Sorry, their feelings are hurt. I try to convince them things like on things that actually sell. Like you can, I have a client who is going like she's going that route where she's monetized. She wants to monetize a blog, but like before we go the influencer route, we like validate the traffic and reach potential and whether or not like the ways that you have to work to do that are going to be fun for you because it is like a whole thing. And is like, and if you have an affiliate influencer marketing business, you have a volume based business where you're very much like subject to algorithms. I knew he was going to bark because there was an Amazon truck going down the street. But yeah. And then they show up. Yeah. Someone says, KJ says, imposter syndrome was stopping me from narrowing my niche. I finally did it. Yay. It certainly helps. And you can play with your niche. Like I don't think that you have to have like the narrowest niche in the world. And it also depends on your personality. Someone who has a narrow niche and sticks with it and it really works for her is Michelle Vroom, who has, for a long time, she was helping people create group programs. And now she, I think, is still doing that, but focused on service providers. But she goes hard on one niche all the way. It leans all the way in. It's the one thing that she does. And then she won't pivot unless she like really pivots. Kim says, what if you're also just very tired? Yeah, I do think that in order to have it all, you have to hold it all. And that is a quote from Melanie Ann Layer, who is a multiple eight-figure, whatever she is, coach and teacher. And she does things in a very unique way, and it works for her. But I love that quote. If you want to have it all, you have to be able to hold it all. And one thing I've seen her do, and I've seen other people do this who are very successful, is they sell a lot. And it can feel like we can get limiting beliefs and constriction around that. Like it's like, oh, do they really want to hear me like sell again? But I will say, like I've been selling a lot in the past month. Like I've sold like 2 or 3 offers in a row without a really big break. And my open rates are really good. And everything I've been creating is selling. And I have the energy for it. But a lot of that has to do with like time management, and emotional regulation and leaning into what feels fun. And then sometimes for me, I don't know if Melanie Ann Lair does this, but I know for me, every now and then I'll start selling something and then I'll stop. So there was something I announced. Nobody purchased it yet, but I did have people messaging me that they were like really excited about the messaging. It was called The Sanctuary. And the more I was thinking about it, the more it was turning into like this big program. It was going to be a higher cost offer. And then I kind of was like, I don't feel like it. And then I didn't talk about it ever again. And I launched a $9 offer, which this $9 offer, Wealth Tones, that I've been selling this month, has made more money than the $77 offer that I launched last month, which I think is kind of funny. Isn't that crazy? The $9 offer has made more money in 2 weeks than the $77 offer did. What's up with that? Let's talk about that. Let me talk about this out loud. Why is that? Is it like my audience isn't buying higher cost offers, or it's like, maybe that's just what's aligned for me. It certainly felt fun. I have really enjoyed that. I've been repackaging the same exact services essentially, but under different brands to appeal to different demographics. That is super smart. Repackaging things. I've thought about doing that with some of my offers. I was thinking about an offer recently that I wanted to like repackage into something, but I don't remember what it is, so I can't tell you. I think people are burned out right now on courses. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, because I see some people killing it with like courses that are in the like $200-ish range. But for me, a $200 course feels like a big commitment. So when I launch a $200 course, I'm turning it into like 12-week live delivery. That's what a $200 course is for me. And then coaching is what it is. But then the $9 stuff, I mean, I put a lot of content into that $9 offer. So yeah, I hear what you guys are saying. Like maybe the $9 offer sold more because it's low risk. But I also think the $9 offer might have sold better. I forgot about this. I think the messaging was more clear. The $77 offer was the art of financial flow. And I feel like that kind of sounds like a generic mindset thing, like the art of financial flow, whereas wealth tones is like, I'm giving you 9 money mindset meditations that are under 9 minutes, under 5 minutes. They're actually all under 9 minutes because some of them went over 5 minutes. I think that's why it's sold. Okay, big tangent there. I feel like we're in a good spot. I think on content, I have to do another training, but I did talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to leave it here. I am going to end the live real quick, but I will give you guys a chance to say, to have any other questions. Sorry about the dog barking. I hope it's louder for me than it is for you. I think we're at where people have bought courses and not finished them and stuff like that. So maybe a smaller offer is more digestible. I do think that's true. And I think the coaching industry suffered from that a bit as well, like group programs and stuff. Like people aren't talking about it as much now as they were a year ago. But a year ago, people were like, coaching isn't selling as well as it used to. And I do think that there are people who are still new and doing awesome in coaching. And I think in large part, a lot of people bought things that didn't work for them, especially online. Like we're in this weird bubble on the internet where like we see a lot of people in our world all the time. So we think that it's small, but I do think that a lot of people bought things they weren't happy with, and that changed, it changed people's buying behavior. So, which is another reason why we need to figure out what people want and what they need and deliver those two things with integrity. And we need more good people making more good money. So let's do it. Cool. I don't see any other questions. So thank you guys so much for coming live. And if you watch the replay, thank you for watching the replay. I do have business coaching spots available. I actually haven't announced in many, many moons. But I just feel like nothing has changed besides the fact that I feel ready to do it. So you can go on AllisonReeves.co and book a strategy session. It's a free discovery call where we can see if we're even going to be a good fit. I'm not a high pressure salesperson. I would not get on the call if you're not remotely interested in buying coaching, but I will give you value and not pressure you and not make it weird if you don't buy anything. So I will see you all on the internet very soon. Have a good night. Okay, bye.